Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or whenever you may be tuning in to the Growing Our Future podcast. It is always great to jump back on the podcast with incredible insights from all of our guests. I mean, every guest we've brought on has brought insights, experiences, passions, and just perspectives that I've got to think if I'm a student, a teacher, even sponsors, wow, I'd like to listen to more. And today is no exception. We have the executive director, the top leader of the largest FFA state association in the country, Jennifer Jackson, the executive director of the Texas FFA Association. Jennifer, thank you for joining us today.
Hey, thanks, Aaron, for having me. I'm excited about this conversation.
Jennifer, we're going to get to a little bit of your background here in a minute, because I think that I would love for people that don't know your pathway to become executive director to gain some insights on how that happened, because I think people's journeys are really important to who they are. Every podcast so far that we've started with, we start with the same question. I'm just curious, Jennifer, what are you grateful for today?
It's kind of an easy question to answer, and it's happening on the perfect day. Today is National Ag Day. And so ironically enough, when I came into this role, even when I was a teacher, a lot of the things that I was grateful for stem around my being involved and being part of this community, a community that instills in individuals the value of hard work, the value of treating each other kindly, the value of setting goals and not stopping until you accomplish those goals. And throughout my entire life, I've been surrounded by really hardworking, intelligent people that have instilled in me the values that I carry through to this day. Some of the ag teachers that I had the privilege of being mentored by, the coworkers that I've had, the students that I've had the opportunity to influence, and now the coworkers that I work with today, your board of directors, the board of directors for the Texas FFA and the Ag Teachers Association, we are surrounded by some pretty incredible people. And so I would say that is what I'm grateful for, and grateful for the knowledge and the ability to advocate for an industry that affects every single person on this planet.
That's really good, by the way. Isn't it nice, though? I mean, when you think about all the chaos that goes on in our world, in our own lives, in our communities, sometimes even within our organizations, that coupled with the news and social media, you could get pretty negative really quick. But every now and then, if you look around and you think about all the encouragers along the way, all the positive outcomes along the way, there really is more to be grateful for than to be upset with.
You say that, and it makes me think of Steve Forsyth. We tend to get bogged down in some of the negativity, and we see things on social media that don't necessarily lift us up. And then when you see Steve Forsyth's name pop up on Facebook, it's going to be something that inspires you or makes you grateful. And so things like that just make the day better. And knowing that we've got people like that to learn from and to talk with, and also to appreciate our industry and what we do, pretty incredible.
Couldn't agree with you more. And of course, Steve and I go way back, so we've got a lot of really fun stories together, and it is fun to see Steve posted on a regular basis. So Jennifer, you're the executive director of the Texas FFA Association, and if I recall, during National FFA Week, I think I saw some pictures of you in a blue and gold jacket when you were in high school. So if that's true, then you must have come from the ranks of the Texas FFA. So why don't you, for all the teachers and the students and folks that are listening that may not know Jennifer Jackson's story, Jennifer, walk us through how you became the executive director of the Texas FFA Association.
Sure. So I'll tell you, I came from very humble beginnings. I was a member of Farmersville FFA. That's in the Area 5. At the time, it was the District 5 Association. And I grew up in a small farming community where agriculture was just a way of life. And it was never a consideration that I would be involved in FFA. As soon as my brother was involved, he was older and kind of sparked my interest. And so as soon as I had the opportunity, I joined and had the ability to show livestock. I showed Santa Gertrudis heifers and any kind of pig you can think of, and had a lot of success. And at the county level, I showed a little bit of everything: rabbits, goats, sheep, chickens, everything. And benefited greatly from my experience in FFA. Obviously my parents instilled in me those values of hard work and being dedicated and honest and sincere to your word. But I tell you, the FFA opened up a lot of doors for me. I met a lot of really great people, Tammy Glasscock being one of those individuals. My ag teacher, Bud Weston, who is still a very good friend of mine today, wasn't super familiar with the record book process. And so when it got time for me to start applying for some of those awards and degrees, he put me in touch with Tammy Glasscock. And so this whole thing kind of comes full circle for me. Got to know Tammy really well my junior year of high school when I applied for my Lone Star. She sat down with me, and this was when we were using the paper books. And so, that kind of off-white color with the brads that you had to fold and unfold, like that's what my record book looked like. So I'm dating myself a little bit here, but we didn't actually switch over to the online record books until my senior year. So I had the tapes, and you had to run them again. But Tammy is actually the reason that I was able to get my Lone Star, and super grateful for that, and really grateful for her leadership, even in this role. Working with her has been incredible. I'll tell you, when I got involved in FFA and started judging and started helping with the chapter development, planning meetings, planning fundraising events, planning service projects, I knew instantly that I wanted to be an ag teacher. I'd always wanted to be a teacher, but once I got involved in FFA, I knew that I wanted to be an ag teacher. So from a very young age, I knew that I wanted to be a teacher, but once I got involved in FFA, knew that I wanted to be an ag teacher, and kind of get to put the two passions together, right? Advocating for agriculture, continuing to learn about that industry, but also being able to be an educator and be in that classroom and work with kids. That was a really great passion of mine. Went to Tarleton State University and majored in AS&D, I think is what it was called back then, Agricultural Services and Development. My junior year of college, actually was involved in an accident while scouting cotton. So my agronomy class was scouting cotton, and I had a broken foot, jumped off the trailer. Long story short, it ended up with my left foot broken, my right leg broken. So I ended up in a wheelchair. And long story short, was supposed to student teach, and ended up moving home to Farmersville and letting my dad drive me back and forth to A&M Commerce for a semester while I completed my coursework. And then I student taught in Blue Ridge under Stephen Dillard. And I tell you, that was probably the most influential experience that I've had to date. Stephen Dillard is a wonderful guy. He had a wonderful chapter, and the best thing that he did for me was held me accountable. He provided constructive criticism. He provided a lot of great advice, and some of that advice I still think of today. He told me that, I asked him, how do you get to be an area officer, or how do you get to be on the ATAT board? And he said, you sit in the back and you take it all in, and you don't ever offer an opinion until somebody asks you for it. And that's exactly what I did. I sat in the back. I volunteered when I could. I judged when I could, but I never offered up an opinion until I thought that somebody actually wanted to hear it. And I think that's probably some of the best advice I ever got, because, it taught me that you shouldn't have an opinion unless you've had that instrumental knowledge that it takes to gain that opinion. It's hard for people to want to listen to you unless they've seen you in action. And so much of what I used to tell my students was, don't tell us how great you are, show us how great you are, because nobody can doubt you then. If they see how wonderful you are, they see how hard you work, they can't doubt you. They might doubt your word, but it's hard to question what they see in action, right? So anyways, had a great student teaching experience, and was fortunate enough, right out of college, got hired in Frisco ISD and worked there for 14 years. And then went on to Wiley to work with one of my very best friends, Luke Parr, in Wiley ISD. And then most recently taught in Van Alstyne for one semester before Texas FFA reached out to me and invited me to apply for the job of student recognition and scholarship coordinator. That worked out really well. And Austin Large had the opportunity to go and work for the American Farm Bureau Federation. And so when he left, Originally I thought, who in the world is going to replace Austin? He was a great boss. He was a good leader for the organization, but had a great opportunity. So there's no hard feelings there or anything like that. We just wondered who would fill his shoes. And the more I thought about it, it really kept me up. I didn't sleep for about a week because I just kept thinking in the back of my mind, this is something that I really want to do. And my dad always taught me, if it keeps you up at night, you got to address it. Like it's that whole, you either got to give it to God or let it go. Right. And so it, like I said, it just kept coming back to me. And a few people reached out to me and encouraged me to apply, you being one of those individuals. And so I applied and gave it to God and just said, if this is what's meant to be, then it will be. And it worked out in my favor. I'm blessed to be able to do this job. I'm blessed by the leadership that you and Ray provide, as far as, and as well as Les Hudson. I'm surrounded by a group of really wonderful individuals who help me to do this job and to feel, I guess the word is motivated and inspired to do this job well. The conversations that we have, they challenge me. And I think that's a good thing, right? If you're not challenged in your daily life, then you're doing something wrong. And so what can we do for students? What can we do for teachers? And what can we do for this industry? And those are the conversations that we have every single day. And I wouldn't want it any other way.
Wow, what a journey. That's a great story. I mean, it's a great story. There's probably a lot of people listening right now that could take a lot of insight from that of, wow, if I would like to do that someday, what do I need to do to prepare along the way? And it sounded like along the way there was mentors. I heard mentors along the way. I heard key advice along the way. I heard, surround yourself with good people along the way. There was a lot of really good stuff there in what you just shared.
Like I said, I consider myself to be pretty blessed. Being in this community, there's not a whole lot like it. And you said earlier, we see some negativity on social media. One of the things that I've read recently is that for every negative thing that you read, you have to read 9 positive things to reverse your opinion. And so that spoke to me, because if we are doing our job as advocates of the industry and as advocates for agriculture education, and we're really sharing all the good, everything that farmers and ranchers, producers, anyone involved in agriculture, if we share that constantly, and we just flood social media and we flood these young minds with the good, I think that we can overcome the negativity that we're currently faced with. And so challenge accepted, right? I think that we're the ones to lead that charge, and hopefully we kind of are able to change that rhetoric a little bit, change the conversation, change the course of it, and spin it to a more positive, so that people know the truth about agriculture and all the good.
That's good stuff. Thinking about it, I'm sitting here, you're making my mind go back in time, and I'm thinking about, the perspective that I'm blessed with. I don't know if it's a blessing or a curse to know that I've worked with Guy Finstead, I've worked with Gerald Young, I've worked with Barney McClure, and now I get to work with Ray, to have worked with Tom Maynard, and to Austin Large, and now yourself, Terry Phillips. And oh my gosh, we've had several turnovers over at TEA along the way, all the way up until now, Ron Whitson, Les Hudson. But it's interesting when you talk about all the teachers in your past, by the way, because of what they shared along the way. And I can tell you that watching the FFA Association and serving on that board for 22 years, it's interesting to see the contributions of our directors to the organization. But I think the one thing that you really bring to our team, Jennifer, and I hope that you never lose this, is I like the fact that you're full of energy and ideas, because energy and ideas require us to move. Managing something, it's kind of like the old saying by Ken Blanchard. He said, managers do things right, but leaders do the right things. And I think sometimes having imagination and vision and ideas, they create action, they create movement. Now with that, there's obviously more moving parts. There's more you've got to keep up with, but it also allows us to give responsibility You're giving responsibility to your state officers, to your staff, to your volunteers. And by giving them responsibility, you also have the chance to hold them accountable. And those are all winning combinations for personal and career growth. But it all starts with you. You've heard me say many times, a fountain can only rise as high as its head, period. So the leaders of organizations have to have very strong visions. They have to be very strong communicators. They have to be able to rally people and say, this is where we're headed, and here's the reason why that's important. And I know that you've got a handle on that, and you're doing it for the largest state FFA association in the country.
You know, when you talk about having ideas and being excited, that comes from being in the classroom for so long and seeing what we have the ability to accomplish, and also what we can do for our teachers. I don't know that people who aren't teachers know the strenuous job that ag teaching is. I mean, if you do it right, it can really lead up to be, it's 3 jobs in one. You have to be an effective FFA advisor. You have to be a classroom teacher that's held to the same standards as any core teacher on campus. And then you also have to supervise SAE projects. And so to do all 3 of those parts well, there has to be some support from us, or you've got to pick and choose what you do well. And ag teachers are not individuals known for being mediocre. They want to be the best at everything. And I think that's a wonderful charge, but I also think that makes our job evident. And our job is to offer those student opportunities and to always challenge ourselves to grow and to better those opportunities, but to try to figure out ways that we can support our teachers. And we have to do that, or we're going to lose them. And we're certainly not going to be able to replenish or replace the ones that are nearing retirement. And so, you know, if anyone asks me what my job is, it's not just managing the work of the individuals in our office. It's also trying to find ways to support our students and to support those teachers as well. And I think that's one thing that's kind of interesting too. I don't know that unless you talk to us constantly or often, I don't know that everybody understands how closely we all work together. And I think the more we work together, the more good we're able to do, the more that we can impact those teachers and those students.
Couldn't agree with you more. I love it, you know, and not to change subject, but just kind of piggyback on what you said. I love every year when new teachers have a chance to come to the foundation board meeting. And it's exactly what you said, because they don't know what we talk about. They don't know, even though all of our board meetings are open to the public, by the way, so that anybody ever says, well, Aaron, when are your board meetings? Well, we post everything, we share everything. We invite any teacher, any member. We want to be as transparent as we can. We have no hidden agendas. Come on down, see what we're doing, because I'm proud of what we're doing, because what we're doing is exactly what Jennifer just said. We're trying to work together with our colleagues. We're trying to provide opportunities for students. We're trying to do everything we can to empower and encourage our educators. We're trying to bring sponsors to the table to create new professional networks, new opportunities for everybody. I just think it's exciting for me to think about where we are today versus where we were when I was an FFA member. And going back to that, what do we look at around us and what do we see? There are always people that the sky is falling. There's always somebody that something is not as good as it should be. And you know what? Okay, let's try to improve those areas. But I can tell you this. In my involvement since 1980 with the Texas FFA, there are more opportunities today for students and teachers than ever in our 94-year history. We have so much to be grateful for. We got leadership, CDEs, we got scholarships, we got professional training, we got larger networks, we got opportunities for our educators beyond their conference, in addition to their conference, through their conference. When you look at everything we have, but like I always say, anytime you throw out a good idea, there's always cave people out there. It never fails. Any organization, any community right now, all you got to do is throw out an idea. And as soon as you throw it out, the cave people will come out of hiding. And if you don't know what a cave person is, It's citizens against virtually everything. And they will show up and they will speak out. But I will tell you that folks that have strong vision, they're not distracted. In the words of Winston Churchill, he said, "You'll never reach your destination if you stop and throw rocks at every barking dog." It's not easy to be a leader, Jennifer. The role that you've accepted, Ray's accepted, Les has accepted, myself, they're not easy roles. There's always somebody that's not happy. Our jobs are to keep a strong focus on the future, because in doing so, we accomplish exactly what you just so eloquently said, and that is more opportunities for kids, more support to teachers. And at the end of the day, that's how we grow a stronger FFA association, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. I think what you said is spot on. If we did try to throw a stone at every barking dog, we would get so bogged down in that negativity that we couldn't focus on all the good that we're doing. We couldn't focus on that need to continuously grow and continuously learn. And that's another thing that I think we have to instill in our members and in our teachers is the need to constantly improve. Growth doesn't always have to relate to quantity, right? To be a great ag teacher, it doesn't mean that you've got to train 20 teams. It means that you've got to impact kids. And so if you go from, I think what I'm trying to say is, I don't necessarily know that we have to quantify every single win. I think that a lot of times setting goals just means today I'm going to be positive. Today I'm going to have a great attitude. Today I'm going to accomplish my goal of going in here and being the best classroom teacher I can and building relationships with students and knowing that when I leave at the end of the day, they left my classroom having learned something and having felt safe. And what better accomplishment can you be proud of than knowing that you impacted a student in that way? And that when they leave your classroom at the end of their 4 years or even their 1 year, they still think back on the classroom and how they felt and that you challenge them to learn. And how cool is it what we get to teach? I mean, the ag industry is unlimited. And, we had a conversation the other day about one of the new sponsors, and I don't know if we can talk about it, but just that information alone is exciting to me. I'm excited to learn about SAEs that come from that particular sponsor in general. And so we've got a lot to be grateful for is really the moral of what I'm trying to say. And I think the coolest thing that we get to do is impact students. And so however we can empower teachers to do that, sponsors to do that, when I lay my head down at night, the wheels are always turning. I'm constantly thinking of ways that we can do that. But I also do that knowing that even though I can't make everybody happy, I'm doing it for the right reasons. And so I think that's what you have to do to lead. You have to know that at the end of the day, you did the right thing, even if you can't make everybody happy. And that's a hard pill to swallow sometimes, especially for somebody like me who tends to be a people pleaser.
Well, I think too, when you're talking about leadership, yourself, Ray, Les, myself, when we talk about leadership, it's okay not to know everything. It's okay not to know everything.
Sure.
What's not okay is not to ask.
Sure.
And so the most important thing that we can do as leaders is to say, listen, I don't know how this works. I need to ask somebody who can help me understand that, who can help me become better and proficient at it, so that I may be able to answer that for somebody someday. And I think that's where we, as directors, we have to encourage one another. And we're doing it for exactly what you said, and that is to improve the organization. I was in, over the course of my career, I've done a couple of consulting jobs in other states, working with their state associations, their foundations, their teachers, everybody trying to forge strong strategic plans and focuses. And, one of the questions that I like to ask people is, what is it that you're trying to be? So many times you get a management answer. Well, we're trying to do our job well. We're trying to do this well, or we're trying to do that. And, one time one of them asked me, well, Aaron, in Texas, what are y'all trying to be? And I said, well, that's a great question. That's easy. I said, the best. And I said, I want us to be focused on being the best. What do we need to do to be the best FFA association in the country? What do we need to do to be the best teachers association in the country? What do I need to do as a development officer to be the best development officer in the country? if we're not shooting to be the best, then we ought to hang a sign up that says no worse than the competition. Because when we focus on being the best, guess what message that sends to our kids and to our teachers is that we want to be partners with you in achieving greatness. We want to plant seeds that will foster a better FFA for those people that follow in our footsteps. And that's where your energy and your ideas, the things that I said I compliment you on, those are the things that will be elements that will pay it forward. And I think over time, organizations change. You have new people that come in, new people that go out, new staff that come in. Every time that happens, there's always adjustments. The most important thing that we can do is ensure that the organizational culture is a culture of excellence, expectation, accountability, vision, transparency, and all the things that I know that you believe that the organization should be.
Absolutely. And that brings me to another thing. We had a conversation the other day. Students these days, and we work with a lot of incredible students. I think that we can both agree on that. But when it comes to students, when it comes to state officers, staff members, teachers, anybody, I think what we have to remember is that accountability is a huge compliment. Accountability means that somebody thinks that you are capable of doing something and doing it really well. It's not an insult for somebody to hold you accountable or for them to give you feedback so that you can grow. Because I don't think they'd take the time to do that if they didn't think that you were capable of that growth. And so that's something that just speaks to me right now, in light of some of the things that are going on, in light of some of the things that we hear from teachers. We just have to quit treating accountability like the biggest insult, because it really is a huge blessing and it's a big compliment.
Well, one of these days, Jennifer, we can do more of these down the road, and we could circle back and I could tell you about what it was like when I was state president. And, that when I look at the opportunities that the kids have today versus what I had when I was a state president, I mean, little things like I didn't have a clothing allowance. I bought my own clothes. I ironed my own clothes. I love it when I talk to the kids and we talk about how they use GPS to find schools. And they said, well, how did you find the school back in your day? And I'd say, well, as you pulled into town, you looked for the football stadium because you knew if you saw the stadium lights, the high school was probably in that area somewhere. So it's all of these little things. But I think when you have those discussions, maybe it helps you become a little more grateful for what we have today. When you realize, like you said, I love what you said about if somebody gives you accountability and responsibility, that's a compliment. When I was state president, it was a compliment. I felt like I was the leader. I was in charge. I had to be the best version of me as I could be because people depended on me. It was an incredible job. And I'm lucky that folks like Benny Clark and Jay Udy, they held me accountable to that job. And because they did, that's things that I've carried into other jobs and into the future. I'm going to be interviewing Gordon Davis from CEV Multimedia. And he was one of my very first bosses. And, there were a lot of times where he gave us a lot of responsibility. But I will tell you, there was probably 10 times accountability with that responsibility. But they are tools that I've continued to use until this day because somebody took the time to invest in me. Just like
Absolutely.
You and your team are taking the time, Jennifer, to invest in the state officers and the area officers on the leadership continuum. Y'all provide all kinds of opportunities for kids through their entire FFA career.
Absolutely. So the state officers are actually held accountable to a leadership continuum that's hosted by the National FFA Association. And so they do milestone training, they do onboarding, they have training throughout the year to prepare them for each section of the year, developing workshops for students that will be presented with the travel team, planning for convention, planning for keynote addresses that they'll deliver at area conventions. And so throughout that process, they have a little bit of guidance just to make sure that they have some guidance from the national level, because obviously we want them to continue to learn and grow. Being a state officer doesn't mean you're done, right? It means that you have this superb opportunity to continue to grow, but you also have this incredible platform to impact 155,000 members. And so how blessed are they that they get to accept that challenge of growing this much in this year? And I think that's the way that we've got to look at state office. It's a challenge to be the best possible influencer that we can for these members, and to teach them how significant the ag industry is and how important ag education is, and what those students can do with the tools that they gain through their FFA involvement. But yes, the leadership continuum doesn't stop at just the state officers. We provide tons of opportunities for chapters to get involved too, and whether that be through our legislative lead experience that the foundation hosts, Day at the Capitol. That's an opportunity for students to come and engage with stakeholders and to understand that legislative process. They can participate in excellence conferences that are held throughout the state. And that's a leadership conference that's held for sophomores, juniors, and seniors. Green Hand Camp, we know, is held in most of the areas, but several years ago, we saw a need to improve and to offer something for sophomores, juniors, and seniors. And so that's where that came from. We also encourage a lot of members to participate in activities that are hosted through our partners. Texas Farm Bureau Association is an incredible group of individuals that also helps us lead that charge in advocating for agriculture. And so there's lots of opportunities for students, and Texas FFA can't do it all. We can't do it all by ourselves. And so we rely pretty heavily on those other individuals to host some pretty incredible opportunities for our students too.
By the way, because you brought that up, let's just talk about that real quick. So when we talk about the leadership continuum, we've got the Ford Leadership Scholars, we got the Legislative Lead Program, we got the Growing Our Future Leadership Series, we got the Lead Experience for Teachers, we got the Teachers Conference. You know, none of those things are intended to be, well, that's the ATAT, or that's the foundation, or that's the FFA. Really, it's all of us working together. I mean, the foundation, we're supporting the state convention. We're trying to support Ford Leadership Scholars. We support the Teachers Conference. We support the Teacher Mentor Program. There's so many things of what we're all collectively trying to do. It's not, all we're trying to do is create more touch points for students, more touch points for teachers, more opportunities for them to find a way to engage. And I look forward to, like you're doing, thinking about new ideas, new ways we can get students involved, new ways to get teachers involved, or provide them assets or the encouragement. So many things, but it is a team effort. And that's what I really appreciate that you've discussed today very well. We should do more of these in the future and kind of talk about where we are at the time, because I think it's going to be good for sponsors and others to listen. I can tell you, Jennifer, that your colleagues across the country, this dialogue right here is going to be very important to other state associations and other state foundations, to hear some of the challenges that we may be facing, to hear some of the successes, because every state is a little bit different. But when it comes to challenges and opportunities, we all have that in common. So when we share, we might be able to help somebody else, or if we listen to theirs, we may be able to find a solution for ours.
Absolutely. I think the best way to overcome challenges, though, is through open communication. I think the more that we talk, the more that we bounce ideas off each other, the more that we share these big ideas. And sometimes I need to be brought back down to reality, and sometimes I need to be challenged to think a little bit more outside the box. But if we don't ever have those conversations, we're never challenged to do anything any different. So thank you for involving me and including me in these conversations. I sure appreciate the direction that we're headed, and I'm excited to see what we accomplish.
So let's go ahead and wrap this up, because you and I could keep talking forever. It for obvious reasons. We're both passionate about the FFA, and we both want to see it succeed. And it's interesting. You've got a role to play within Texas Team Ag Ed. I've got a role to play, but collectively, it's exciting to know that our focus really is on the students and the teachers. That's what we're trying to do. So thank you for sharing all your insights today. I do like to wrap up the podcast with a fun question.
Sure.
So you get to have a fun question to wrap up with. Okay. So Jennifer, What is the best concert you've ever been to?
The best concert I've ever been to. Gosh, that's tough, actually. Not many people know this about me, but I am a lover of all things music. So I'm going to tell, I have two.
Okay.
I saw George Strait in Vegas on one of his farewell tours. And listen, they say that you can't just stand there and sing, but he can stand there and sing. And we were highly engaged the entire night. So that was a great concert. But I also had the opportunity to see the Eagles. And gosh, that's a close call to make. I don't know. I can't choose one of them. But the Eagles, definitely a great concert. Saw them at American Airlines Center and they put on a great show. What about you? What's yours?
Oh, you don't get me started, because I love live music. I love outdoor music. And everybody that knows me, if you ever get a hold of my iPhone or listen to my music library, you have the entire spectrum from Frank Sinatra to Kid Rock to I'm a diehard Bruce Springsteen fan. I'm a diehard Jimmy Buffett parrot head. I've got great Christian music. I've got easy listening music. I've got the entire gamut. But I have seen George live in concert, by the way. I've seen the Boss about 7 times in concert. I've seen Jimmy Buffett about 5 times in concert. So I'm pretty much a diehard Bruce, Jimmy, and George Strait fan. One thing that Jennifer and I have talked about, and I don't know who might listen to this podcast. If you're listening to this podcast, you got any insights you want to share them, please do. But I told Jennifer, and I've been saying this for years, decades now, but before I leave this job, one day at the Texas FFA convention, I want to have a program called Texas FFA Influencers. And those influencers could be in business, they could be in medicine, they could be in art, could also be in music. And I would love to have George Strait, Don Henley, Pat Green. Waylon's no longer with us, but I'd love to bring Shooter Jennings up and Willie Nelson up, just for one time on stage, introduce Texas FFA influencers, people that have influenced music of all genres. And I would tell you that those former Texas FFA members that I just named have influenced music. And I think it would be awesome to have them stand on the stage and be recognized. So we might have to work on making that happen.
Absolutely. No dream too big, huh?
Nope. Anyway, Jennifer, thank you for joining us. Like we always say, if you want to know what the future is, grow it. What's it take to grow it? Well, you got to plant the right seeds. You got to nurture it. You got to take care of it. And then you got to grow it to be strong. And I think that what the Texas FFA is doing, what Jennifer's doing, what we're trying to support them in doing, and the teachers, is to plant seeds of greatness in our kids, in our teachers, to nurture those, to give them the encouragement, the counsel, the accountability, the responsibility, and to grow a strong Texas ag science education and FFA program. And I think that's what we're working towards. So until the next episode, thank you for joining us today. We'll see you down the road. And don't forget, if you want to know what the future is, grow it. Thanks, Jennifer.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.